Did you know that nearly every legal system in the world today traces its roots back to a single stone pillar erected over 3,700 years ago in ancient Mesopotamia? This remarkable artifact contains 282 laws that would forever change how human societies function. And it all began with one visionary king who dared to believe that justice should be the same for everyone. We're talking about Hammurabi, the sixth king of Babylon, who ruled from 1792 to 1750 BCE during what historians call the Old Babylonian period. Picture this: the world was a vastly different place. Most people lived in small agricultural communities along river valleys. Writing had only recently been invented, and the concept of organized government was still in its infancy. Yet in this ancient world, one man would create a legacy that continues to shape our modern understanding of law and justice. Hammurabi ascended to the throne of Babylon when he was just a young man, inheriting a relatively small city-state in southern Mesopotamia. The region was fragmented, with dozens of independent kingdoms constantly warring against each other. Trade routes were dangerous, and people lived in fear of both foreign invaders and local bandits. Justice was arbitrary, often depending on who you knew or how much you could pay. But Hammurabi had a different vision. He saw the chaos around him and recognized that lasting peace could only come through consistent, fair laws that applied to everyone equally. This was a revolutionary concept. Before Hammurabi, most disputes were settled by local chiefs or priests who made decisions based on personal judgment, tradition, or divine inspiration. There was no standard system, no predictable outcomes. Hammurabi's first major achievement was military conquest, but not for the reasons you might expect. Between 1792 and 1760 BCE, he systematically conquered neighboring city-states, unifying most of Mesopotamia under Babylonian rule. However, unlike many conquerors who simply imposed their will through force, Hammurabi understood that true power came from creating a system that people would willingly follow. This brings us to his second and most famous achievement, the Code of Hammurabi. Around 1750 BCE, Hammurabi commissioned scribes to compile and codify laws that would govern his entire empire. These weren't just random rules, but a comprehensive legal system that covered everything from property rights and business transactions to family relationships and criminal justice. The code itself was carved into a massive black stone pillar, nearly 8 feet tall, topped with a relief showing Hammurabi receiving the laws from Shamash, the Babylonian god of justice. The pillar was placed in the center of Babylon where everyone could see it, though most people couldn't read. Still, the message was clear. These laws came from divine authority and applied to all. What made Hammurabi's code truly revolutionary wasn't just its comprehensiveness, but its underlying principles. For the first time in recorded history, punishments were proportional to crimes. The famous principle of an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, wasn't about encouraging revenge, but about limiting it. Before this code, someone might kill your entire family for a minor offense. Hammurabi's law said the punishment must fit the crime. The code also established different standards of justice based on social class, which sounds unfair to modern ears, but was actually progressive for its time. Previously, common people had no legal protections at all. Hammurabi's code ensured that even slaves had certain rights and that nobles couldn't abuse their power without consequences. Let's examine a pivotal moment that truly demonstrates Hammurabi's commitment to justice. Historical records tell us about a case where a nobleman accused a commoner of theft. Under the old system, the nobleman's word would have been accepted without question, and the commoner might have been executed. But Hammurabi's code required evidence and witnesses. When the investigation revealed that the nobleman had falsely accused the commoner to steal his property, the nobleman faced the same punishment he had sought to impose on the innocent man. This case spread throughout the empire, demonstrating that even the powerful weren't above the law. It was a watershed moment that established the principle that justice should be blind to social status when determining guilt or innocence. Hammurabi's third major achievement was economic. His legal code created the world's first comprehensive business law, covering contracts, trade agreements, and property rights. This legal framework made long-distance trade safer and more profitable, turning Babylon into the commercial hub of the ancient world. Merchants knew their agreements would be enforced consistently, regardless of which city they were in. The long-term impact of Hammurabi's work cannot be overstated. His code influenced legal systems throughout the ancient world. The Assyrians, Persians, and even the ancient Israelites borrowed concepts from Babylonian law. Many principles found in the Hebrew Bible's legal codes, including proportional punishment and the presumption of innocence, can be traced back to Hammurabi's innovations. But here's a lesser-known fact that adds depth to Hammurabi's character. He was also a master diplomat who preferred negotiation to warfare. Archaeological evidence shows that many of his territorial gains came through strategic marriages, trade agreements, and political alliances rather than military conquest. He understood that sustainable power came from consent, not just force. Hammurabi once wrote, "I am the king who is preeminent among kings. My words are choice, my wisdom is unrivaled. By the command of Shamash, the great judge of heaven and earth, may my justice prevail in the land." This wasn't mere boasting, but a statement of his core philosophy, that legitimate authority comes from serving justice, not from personal power. The relevance of Hammurabi's work to modern times is striking. Every time you sign a contract, every time a court weighs evidence before reaching a verdict, every time someone appeals a decision to a higher authority, you're benefiting from principles that Hammurabi established nearly 4,000 years ago. The concept of due process, the right to present evidence in your defense, the idea that laws should be written down and publicly accessible, all of these fundamental aspects of modern legal systems began with this ancient Babylonian king. Of course, Hammurabi's system wasn't perfect by today's standards. The code explicitly endorsed slavery and treated women as property in many contexts. These aspects reflect the limitations of his time period rather than personal failings. What matters is that he established the framework for legal evolution, creating a system that could be improved over time. Modern legal scholars still study Hammurabi's code, not just as a historical curiosity, but as a foundational document that demonstrates how law can serve as a tool for social organization and justice. The principle that no one, not even rulers, should be above the law, traces directly back to his innovations. Today, as we grapple with questions about justice, equality, and the rule of law, Hammurabi's legacy reminds us that these aren't modern concepts, but fundamental human needs that have driven civilization forward for millennia. His vision of a world where justice is predictable, proportional, and accessible to all continues to inspire legal reformers and human rights advocates around the globe. Hammurabi's story teaches us that true leadership isn't about accumulating power, but about creating systems that serve the common good long after we're gone. In a world that often seems chaotic and unfair, his example shows us that one person's commitment to justice can indeed change the course of human history, creating ripples that continue to shape our world thousands of years later.